I was in the courtyard of the British Library. It would have been early in 2016, I think, right towards the end of my PhD, and I was having lunch with an old friend, Emma Cheetle. Emma was telling me how, as part of her postdoc at the Newcastle University Humanities Research Institute, she'd been asked by her boss, Matthew Grenby, to organise a session at a forthcoming conference on commons. Commons was not her area of expertise, and so she'd been struggling to find speakers for the session. Now, I wasn't any kind of commons expert either, but many years earlier, a friend had given me as a birthday present this book, the one you can see here. This is a pic of the actual book, as you can probably tell. I loved and still love this book, although it assumes a working knowledge of the events of the English Civil War, which I definitely didn't have. Amongst the many interwoven narratives it describes of the ordinary people of the time living through extraordinary circumstances, in particular for me, it describes the adventures of a group of agrarian socialists called the Diggers. The Diggers were protesting at the injustices and inequities of land ownership, so they squatted some unused common land, ploughed it, and planted crops to feed themselves. To be honest, I don't remember now why these people fascinated me so much. They and their interests were and are utterly unlike anything else I'm interested in. But Christopher Hill tells an extremely compelling narrative, I guess, and so I told Emma that if I could present a paper about them, about the Diggers, then I would gladly fill one of her session slots. Fast forward several months to the summer of 2016, where I find myself presenting a paper at an AHRC, that's Arts and Humanities Research Council, organised mega conference in York called Common Ground, an event designed to explore all aspects of commons, from bits of land whose legal constructions were medieval in origin, the remnants of which still exist of course, to contemporary ideas of spatial hierarchies of power in urban contexts. So this is what I presented at that conference. In 2011, on a suburban plot in Surrey, a then newly built house, Ravenridge, was put up for sale for £14,750,000. Just above the house, whose architecture was described by the Mail on Sunday as an unthreatening kind of bloated Georgian, and inaccessible now since the gating of St George's Hill on which it stands, hulk the eroded ramparts of an Iron Age hill fort. Ravenridge also happens to occupy part of the likely site of the first proto-communist digger community established on April 1st, 1649 by Gerard Winstanley and others on what was then the common land of Walton-on-Thames. A gated community since 1912, that summer I tried, though admittedly as you'll see not very hard, to get to the top of the hill in my car. If I'd managed to enter and roam around its leafy private avenues and grandiose houses, here's what I might have found. Pinewood, Mole, Sylvan, Old Oak, Shamwari, Breton Hill, Holland Hill, Toad Hall, Lane End, Frogmore, Narges, Myanmar, Kinsmere, Abbotswood, Bowater, Brackendine, Long Wall, Hillbrook, Cedar Wood, Snow Hill, Hamilton, Conifers, Abbots Mount, Gregory, Larchmont, Tudor, Three Oaks, Silverglade, Pinedale, Hillside, Dalriada, Nirala, Windy Heights, Pinecroft, The Chalet, Cumbrock, Fossways, Little Lincoln, Caesars, Fairwood, Catalina, Highclere, Panorama, Squirrel's Wood, Horizon, Charisma, Oakwood, Pentlands, Cullen, Hoof, Providence, Egon, Hervester, Somerton, The Ramparts, Hill, Hilltop, Ruma Panjai, Rodona, The Vertex, White Cliff, Albany, Pine View, Baracha, Edgeworth. Ondine, Patrice, Ravens Point, Matrix, Sparta, Budabus, Pine Close, Wildwood, Fox Hollow, Dale Garth, Spinney, Broxburgh, Burley, Raven Ridge, Radley, Lavinia, Vandravan, Tor Point, Pisces, Waldgrave, Anador, Gateside, Tanglewood, Chiltern, Heartlands, Jasmine, Solana, Badger's Wood, Oakover, Wood End. Gerard Stanley said, "The work we are going about is this, to dig up George's Hill and the waste ground thereabouts, and to sow corn, and to eat our bread together by the sweat of our brows, and the first reason is this, that we may work in righteousness and lay the foundation of making the earth a common treasury for all." That, I thought, was that. But what Matthew had really been trying to do was to generate expertise, in this case commons expertise, from which to develop a research project to then potentially bid for funding. So, from this York Conference session, together with another Commons-related event from a few months earlier, Matthew, together with Emma and some others, me included, bid for some AHRC money, which, in September 2018, we won. There's a lot more to say about how the bid was put together, and in particular, it might be useful to say more, especially about how I, a relatively inexperienced researcher who, just 3 years earlier, had been running an architectural practice, managed to stay involved. So I think I might make this a pair, or perhaps even a trilogy of presentations, we'll see. But in a nutshell, the projects, Wastes and Strays, the past, present and future of English urban commons as it came to be called, and now in its second year of 3 years, aims to understand as much as we can about those remaining pieces of common land which have a close physical relationship to urban centres, urban commons as we call them, to ask what were these often contested open spaces and how have they persisted across the centuries? How do we understand and use them now? What, if anything, should happen next to them? And crucially, how can we help others make decisions about their own urban commons? Thank you.